Hi, I'm Ricky Frank. I'm an enamelist, and I'm here today at the Creative Side Jewelry Academy of Austin. I'm teaching a class, and I'm going to give you a little tip on one of the ways that I blend my transparent colors together. I've got a piece of fine silver that I have heated with a torch to create a mirror-like finish on it. And I've got a layer of flux, which in the enameling world is clear, transparent, colorless glass. It's got nothing to do with soldering flux. And that's been melted on, so I've got my layer of glass right here. But I've got my fingers on here, and fingers have grease, fingerprints. And I'm using water as a medium to move the grains. So because water and grease don't mix well, what might happen is, as I put my enamel onto the piece, it might start to create its own little movement and not move where the grease is. It kind of acts as a resist. So I want to degrease the piece. So the easiest way I've found to degrease a piece of enamel is take a little bit of spit and put it on here. Just kind of wipe it around, and then I just wipe it on my t-shirt, and now I've got a grease-free piece. So I'm going to start with some very light colors, and I think I'll do just a very simple gradation from a green into some blues. But I'm only going to do these lighter colors as my first layer, because then I can always come back and darken them. And the little tricks that I have for this are, first of all, picking out colors that look good. That's kind of obvious. The next thing is I'm going to do a slight taper. So I'm going from a thick, well, not terribly thick, because I don't want to get air bubbles in there clouding the enamel, but it's a few grains high, and I'm going to use a little bit of water here and use my brush to gently move the water. I'm going to put a little bit of green on this side. I want to keep it nice and wet so that all I have to really do is touch that water and the grains start to move. So I've created another gradation on this side. It's going from dark to light. It's pretty subtle because this color is so pale. And now what I'm going to do is use a very, very pale blue through the middle. And instead of doing a taper, I'm going to do what I call a salt and pepper. When you melt enamel, it melts into individual grains. It doesn't blend like a watercolor or acrylic or an oil paint, but each grain melts into a little ball and remains where it is. But I can mix these grains together, and if they're close enough in value, which is how dark or light they are, and if they're close enough in hue, which is the color, like where they are on the color wheel, then optically my eye is going to read this as one color. And what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for high areas and low areas. And sometimes just turning the piece or moving the light will help me see highs and lows a little bit better. So it's getting close to where I'm going to fire it. Still need just a little bit more. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm going to give it a little tap, and it's going to settle the water a little bit. Next thing I want to do is to get some of this water out, because if I heated it like this, that water would start to boil, the steam would rise up, the enamel would start flying all over the place, and all those grains that I so carefully put there are going to start to move. They'll either fall off the piece, or they're going to, the green will go into the blue. So my favorite little tool for blotting my enamel is toilet paper. And I've kind of taken a little piece and just twisted it to make a little wick. And very gently, what I do is I touch the paper to the side, right next to the enamel. And what I'm looking for when I do this is for the paper to stop moving and the paper to stop getting dark. Because it's getting dark because the water's going into it, and it's moving because the water's moving it. So when I see that stopping, then I know I've got enough water out and I can fire it. Books will tell you that pieces have to be perfectly dry, that you have to get all the water out, put them under a light, put them on top of the kiln, and that's just all rubbish. If I was going to heat this with a torch, which I'm going to do in a moment, I do want to dry it a little bit more than if I was going to put it in a kiln, because the kiln has a nice gentle heat going around the piece. It's a gradual raising of the heat, and that water just evaporates fairly quickly, but not really abruptly. But with the torch, that flame is going to heat that piece so quickly that the water will boil. So if you watch the next demo of firing this piece, you'll see I'm going to start from below and gradually heat it before I fire it. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it.